All right, Doug Smith with another Restaurant Mastermind here on LinkedIn. Obviously, the coronavirus is topic number one for the restaurant industry. So I am talking with David Bloom, Chief Development and Operating Officer for Capriotti's, to get some insights from someone who's been in the restaurant game a long time, has been there, done that, has been through situations like this before, to get his insight in how Capriotti's is handling this, and also give you, as fellow restaurant owners, operators, and those in the industry, some tips. So David, first off, thank you so much for your time. I know you are hectic right now, so I just want to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to glean some of your insight here. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Obviously, doing things virtually today is the norm rather than the exception. We are all obviously in a crisis mode, unlike any other. But I would say, having been, in restaurants and running businesses for 35 to 40 years, we've all been through, substantial crises that were the first time and unlike any other before. So this is a recurrence of that theme. And anybody that operates on a global basis has seen some pretty wild stuff before as well. So I think, number one, might be obvious. Most important, recommendation I have is for leaders to lead at this juncture. A lack of information or a gap of information, that void usually gets filled with negative thoughts and negative information. So really being transparent, not being overly optimistic, but also, realizing that our responsibility to lead is now more important than ever. So we're putting out daily communications to all of our franchise partners, to all of our employees, really kind of telling them what we know and where we're at and how it's going, being very transparent with sales trends that we're seeing going on within our brand versus the industry. We're participating in all the industry, feedback loops to provide that data and get that data back so we can compare. And candidly, we're doing really, really well. And we're very fortunate to have a brand that's been around for 40 years and it's been through its shares of trials and tribulations. And coming out of that, I think the big takeaway is, really knowing who you are and why people value you. And hopefully you've done a good job in valuing your customers and those relationships. But that's just super important, not just kind of trying to pivot all of a sudden and say, hey, we used to be those guys, but now we're somebody else during these times. I think that's probably a mistake to walk away from your brand equity at this point. So we've really doubled down on that. And then obviously added on top of that, enhanced all of the precautions and procedures and protocols we've put in place to ensure that, our safety, our food sanitation, our sealing of delivery bags, and really just how we're treating our employees and how we're participating in the community to give back. For us, particularly to the medical field here in Vegas, we've been very proactive about those kind of things. So just, again, I think really leading on, on a daily basis, communicating on a daily basis and being very open as to what we're seeing. I think the second recommendation I have is you kind of have to live in two worlds right now. You have to live in the reality of where we're at. We're on a 30-day ban, and that could continue, right? So there's no guarantee at the end of April we just kind of bounce out of this. I think some people were projecting sort of a V recovery. I don't think people longer, recovery time, but you have to plan from a business standpoint almost for, worst case scenarios. What happens if this is a long, slow recovery? And then obviously, what are we going to do when we come out of this? Whether that's 30 days and 90 days or 120 days or next year. What are we going to do when we come out of this to really kind of leapfrog, our position as a brand? And so we're spending a lot of time in those two camps. How are we dealing with it today? What do we do to really protect the brand and make sure we have a business to come back to and bring people back to? not just customers, but our laid off employees? And then secondly, how do we kind of, take advantage of the fact that we have some time to put into, things are going to be different. What does that mean, and how do we take advantage of that?
Well, obviously, as I said at the open, you've been through economic downturns before with your years in the restaurant industry. Was there anything that you've taken from past experiences, whether it was the recession from '08, the economic shutdown after 9/11, that you learned that has helped you try to adapt to this situation right now?
Yeah, I think a couple of things, investing and being just open and honest with your people, and you have to protect yourself legally during these times, but candidly, I would say, you also have to just kind of be real with people and let them know, hey, if I'm laying you off, why, what does this look like for you? And then keeping in communication with them, even after you've laid them off, to let them know you still love them and, you're going to make this right as soon as you can. None of us can make any promises, but I think we're all kind of taking a few more risks in terms of those conversations today to just take care of people on the people side of things, and knowing that these times are unlike any other time, and so protecting our people, communicating with them, even if we've laid them off, being just extra helpful to help them apply for benefits. With the franchisees, same thing. Really holding their hands and doing as much work as we can to advise them on how to, shore up their finances, how to create liquidity in their business, what resources to tap into first, helping them to tap in, setting some of those relationships up or teeing those relationships up for them. We just did a webinar, system-wide webinar yesterday. David Barr, who's the former chairman of the IFA, he's on the board of Domino's China. He's very involved on a daily basis, on a national level with the legislature and congressmen, et cetera. Spoke to all of our franchise partners yesterday, and he's also a large multi-unit franchisee himself. So just talking about how he's, guaranteeing he has liquidity, but also what does he see coming out of this? And that's a little bit of a weird subject for me right now, because I don't want to feel like we're taking advantage of people's misfortune. That just feels wrong. But the reality of it is there's going to be a very significant shrinkage in competitors, regardless of what industry you're in. So those brands, those businesses that were maybe teetering, on the edge before this started, they're not reopening. When this is all said and done, they're not coming out of this. So there's going to be fewer restaurant seats. There's going to be fewer retailers. There's going to be more, real estate available. There's going to be opportunities for acquisitions available. There's going to be really good talent on the street that's looking for a home. And so those kind of things I think are knowable. And so really keeping an eye on how do you position yourself? What do you want to do within that? We're spending a lot of time on that right now, knowing that today there's not a lot we can do. We can do our best. We can operate. We can make sure we have liquidity. We can take care of our people, but we're going to have to be patient. So having a very clear plan on how we maximize our survival today, and that's it. Have a really strong survival plan in place, and then a ramp up plan, when it's appropriate.
One last question for you, and you have touched on it already, but what would you say to somebody if they come to you and they're a newer restaurant owner operator? This is the first time going through something like this, and they're dealing with all the negativity and all the pressures going on. Do you have any one golden nugget piece of advice to say, look, we understand what's happening now, but this is what you have to do to be prepared for when this is over? Yes, we don't want to, downplay other people's situations, but there will be opportunities to grow and to come out of this stronger. But do you have any one piece that you would tell somebody?
Yeah, I think it's, you really got to be true to who you are as an owner, as an operator, as a brand. And for us, that means being really involved in the community. And even though these are tough times, not just cocooning and hiding, but being out there and being really, front and center in the community. You can do that in very inexpensive ways. We've delivered thousands of box lunches through state assemblymen, Steve Yeager, and some of the other local and state politicians here to the hospitals and urgent care centers, and we're continuing to provide thousands. But I see individual operators getting incredibly creative. They didn't have a to-go business. They didn't have a pickup and delivery business before, and they're creating options around that. So being scrappy, being nimble, and remembering why to get in this in the first place, and if the only reason you got in this was to get rich, this is probably testing your resolve. That's not usually a great reason to get into business. It's a lot more tougher. It's a lot tougher than that. So go back to why you got into this, and don't forget that, and just stay true to it.
Excellent. David Bloom, Chief Development Operating Officer for Capriotti's. Again, knowing what your schedule is, I really do appreciate you giving us a few minutes to be able to give those in our LinkedIn network, because you and I are first connections. We have several thousand people that we're both connected to be able to get the insight and your expertise in this situation. It is valuable. So once again, thank you very much, sir. We do appreciate your time.
Yeah, if anybody needs anything on LinkedIn, just shoot me a message or what have you with any specific questions they might have, or if I can help in any way, just don't hesitate to reach out.
Cool. Thank you very much, David.
Thanks, Doug. Have a good one.